Ukraine's savage midnight onslaught. Putin's empire burns as Kiev delivers a brutal death blow in late April 2026. In the pitch-black hours of a tense night during the final days of April 2026, Ukraine struck with a ferocity and precision that sent terrifying shockwaves straight into the heart of the Kremlin. This was no ordinary operation. This was Ukraine going deep and hard, delivering the final, unmistakable, brutal message to Vladimir Putin, one he has feared and desperately tried to avoid hearing. Russia is going down, and it is going down fast. Everything Russian, every supply line, every depot, every piece of military infrastructure in the occupied territories and beyond is now burning. Ukraine has unleashed a ruthless, game-changing tactic of medium-range drone strikes that is systematically shattering Russia's rear, crippling its front lines, and wiping out the very foundations of Putin's war machine. The hatred fueling this conflict has reached a boiling point of pure vengeance. For years, Russian forces have unleashed indiscriminate terror on Ukrainian cities, villages, and civilians. Now Ukraine is hitting back with cold, calculated fury, turning the invaders' own aggression into their worst nightmare. Medium-range strikes have arrived, and they are rewriting the rules of this war in real time, making 2026 the year of Russia's most catastrophic losses yet. The warning was as chilling as it was defiant. The battle-hardened Magyar Birds unit posted a raw, unfiltered message on X that exploded across the internet and sent panic rippling through Moscow's halls of power. "Worms, you're fucked," they declared with unmistakable venom. "We're just warming up the engines. Buckle up, it's about to go all the way down your throat." Those words were not mere taunts. They were a deadly promise, delivered on the heels of one of the most devastating nights of coordinated strikes Russia has ever endured in this conflict. That night in late April 2026, Ukrainian forces executed a meticulously planned assault on 16 high-value military targets spanning Donetsk, Crimea, Zaporizhzhia, and even deep into Russian territory itself. Every target was chosen with surgical intent to weaken Putin's ability to sustain his desperate spring offensive. Air defense systems shielding Iskander ballistic missile bases were obliterated in spectacular fireballs. Massive oil depots erupted into towering infernos that lit up the night sky for miles. Black Sea Fleet logistics were reduced to smoldering ruins. If it was Russian and within striking range, it was hit hard. Ukraine achieved this using swarms of advanced medium-range drones, the game-changing weapons that are finally allowing Kyiv to turn the tide decisively against a larger but increasingly clumsy adversary. The momentum has shifted dramatically, and exclusive footage captured from the front lines proves exactly why. In occupied Donetsk and Crimea, the legendary Azov First Corps sent waves of FPV drones, screaming through the darkness like avenging specters. High-definition full-color video shared widely on X by Anton Gerashenko showed the terrifying perspective from the drones themselves gliding deep behind enemy lines with eerie accuracy, locking onto Russian logistical hubs that were supposed to be untouchable. Russian air defenses, once touted as impenetrable, failed miserably. Over and over, the drones struck with devastating effect, slamming into troop convoys, armored vehicles, grinding along supply routes, clusters of soldiers preparing for assaults, and critical fuel and ammunition dumps. These were not random hits. Ukrainian operators flew their machines with such precision and range that they systematically dismantled the logistical lifelines Russia desperately needs to keep its spring offensive alive. The Magyar Birds released nearly 6 minutes of raw combat footage showing drone after drone finding its mark. Buildings exploded in massive secondary detonations. Thick black smoke billowed into the sky as fires raged unchecked. Russian air defense crews could do nothing but watch their own systems get torn apart by the very technology they were supposed to counter. This footage reveals the brutal truth: Ukraine has mastered drone warfare to a level that exposes Russia's vulnerabilities. If it supports Putin's war machine in any way, trucks hauling reinforcements, workshops, building enemy drones, fuel storage, feeding tanks, it has become a priority target. The deep, visceral hatred between the two sides is on full display here. Russian aggression created this monster of resistance, and now Ukrainian forces are exacting a heavy price strike by strike, ensuring that every Russian advance costs exponentially more in blood and treasure. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, have you ever seen a military transformation this dramatic? What do you believe Putin's next desperate move will be as his rear lines collapse in flames? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters as this war reaches a boiling point. Let's dive deeper into the horrifying details of that night's carnage region by region, because the scale of destruction demands it. First, the bloody cauldron of Donetsk, the region Putin covets above all others. Mineral-rich and historically contested, Donetsk sits at the center of his maximalist demands. Ukraine has refused to yield a single inch. In response, Russia has thrown wave after wave of its own soldiers into a suicidal meat grinder. Reports from early April 2026 revealed a staggering casualty rate: 316 Russian soldiers lost for every single square kilometer gained. That number skyrocketed even further as Ukraine's medium-range strategy reached its terrifying zenith. In the occupied settlement of Vodiane, an OSA-AK air defense system meant to protect advancing Russian columns was annihilated in a blinding flash. Moments later, Ukrainian forces struck a critical facility belonging to Putin's elite Rubicon unit, his specially created drone experts, tasked with countering Ukrainian innovation. The first separate center of the Ukrainian unmanned systems forces hit a major unmanned aerial vehicle depot and workshop in Hern. Dozens of Russian attack drones were destroyed on the ground before they could launch, along with critical spare parts and assembly lines. This was more than a tactical blow. It was a direct castration of Russia's own drone program at the exact moment Ukraine's is reaching new heights of lethality. The hatred here runs especially deep. Rubicon wanted to match Ukrainian mastery, but instead they watched their dreams burn in the Ukrainian night. As fires consumed Donetsk targets, the assault escalated mercilessly into Crimea. Illegally seized by Russia in 2014, Crimea was supposed to be an impregnable fortress and staging ground. Instead, it has become a graveyard for Russian ambitions. Over 4 brutal years, Ukraine has systematically degraded the peninsula's defenses. The Black Sea Fleet has already lost more than a third of its warships and been forced to abandon its primary ports under relentless pressure. On that fateful night, Ukrainian drone operators obliterated a pair of Iskander missile deployment bases, the very launch platforms used to rain terror on Ukrainian civilians. These strikes were pure revenge. Just days earlier, Ukraine had already demonstrated mastery by neutralizing 3 Iskander missiles in flight within less than an hour. Now they were destroying them at their source, denying Russia the ability to reload and relaunch. A Pantsir S-1 air defense battery in Feodosia was shredded into scrap. An ammunition depot in Meshiria, serving the remnants of the Black Sea Fleet, detonated with earth-shaking force, sending massive fireballs skyward and denying Putin's navy critical resupply. But the most psychologically devastating blows came at the oil depots. The 9th Battalion of the 414th Brigade executed flawless strikes on massive facilities at Hlyboki Yar and Oktyabrski. Liquid gold, Russia's economic lifeblood, erupted in apocalyptic blazes. Millions of liters of fuel essential for tanks, aircraft, ships, and export revenue were consumed by raging fires. Thick, toxic smoke choked the Crimean sky for days. This was part of a broader strategy to starve Russian forces of fuel while choking off cash flows that fund the war. Similar attacks have ravaged Russian oil infrastructure in the Baltic region for weeks, and follow-up strikes continued. 2 days later came the assault on Vysotsk port in the Leningrad region. Then the classic Ukrainian double tap hit Sevastopol's oil depots, with drones returning to finish the job, despite Russian attempts at reinforcement. One ammunition depot used by the battered Black Sea Fleet was also destroyed. The once proud Navy, now tactically crippled, lost yet more precious resources. Who needs a traditional Navy when Ukrainian drones can hunt and destroy with impunity? Let's hear from you right here. Does the destruction of Russia's naval and fuel infrastructure mark the point of no return? How long can Putin sustain a war when his own rear is a blazing inferno? Comment below with your take. We want to know what you see coming next. The nightmare continued in Zaporizhzhia, another key target of Putin's failing spring offensive. A Buk M1 air defense system in the occupied settlement of Bahativka was taken out with clinical efficiency. This opened a safe aerial corridor for future devastating follow-ups. The pattern is now unmistakable. Destroy the shields, then annihilate what they protect. Finally, the strike that brought the war home to Russia proper. In Krasnodar Krai near Tuapse, Ukrainian drones turned one of Rosneft's crown jewels, a massive oil refinery, one of the 10 largest in Russia, processing 12 million tons of products annually and accounting for up to 10% of the country's petroleum exports, into a raging volcano visible from the Black Sea. Fuel tanks erupted in chain reactions. Regional Governor Vaniamin Kondratiev tried the tired drone debris excuse, but the images told a different story. Direct, catastrophic hits causing fires that raged for days. This single strike alone threatens billions in economic damage and months of disrupted supply chains. This 24-hour hell, wrapped up with a clear declaration, worms your fuckhead. Ukraine has built a new deep strike capability that has filled a critical gap. Short-range FPVs dominate the immediate front, while long-range assets hit deep into Russia. But the vital medium-range zone, 20 to 300 kilometers, was long missing. That gap has now been closed with devastating effect. According to the Atlantic Council, Ukraine launched a concerted effort in early 2025 to develop these cheaper, highly effective medium-range systems. Between March 2025 and March 2026, they executed 365 such strikes, one per day on average. Roughly half targeted air defenses in occupied zones, systematically peeling back Russia's protective layers. Each destroyed system opens pathways to even juicier targets: oil hubs, command posts, ammunition caches, drone workshops. The results on the battlefield are catastrophic for Russia. Kill zones that once extended 50 kilometers behind the front have tripled in depth thanks to these new drones. Russian troops in the rear, once relatively safe staging areas, are now hunted relentlessly. Infantry must cross expanding layers of hell, filled with burning vehicles and mangled bodies before they even reach Ukrainian defensive lines. Russia has no effective counter. This multi-layered drone strategy is relentless and growing stronger. The human and societal toll inside Russia is mounting. According to the Institute for the Study of War's Battlefield Assessments, around mid to late April 2026, societal discontent is surging. Even state-controlled polls from the All-Russian Public Opinion Research Center show Putin's approval ratings sliding steadily downward from 72.9% in early March to 66.7% by mid-April. after the latest inferno, those numbers face further collapse, especially in regions like Tuapse, where the economic pain is now personal. Ukraine's strategy is brilliantly vicious in its long-term impact. By destroying logistics and rear assets, every Russian frontal assault becomes weaker, bloodier, and more futile. Higher casualties force the Kremlin to throw more young Russians into the grinder. After more than 4 years of this nightmare, Russian society is reaching its breaking point. Even manipulated polls show growing anger. The people are tired of sacrifice for a war that brings only death and economic ruin. If Putin remains blinded by imperial ambition, it may ultimately be his own citizens who force an end, perhaps through unrest he cannot control. On the front lines, the picture is equally grim for Moscow. Backed by this medium-range campaign and other innovations, Ukrainian forces have liberated significant territory while stalling Putin's grand 2026 spring offensive. His plans are crumbling in real time. What we witnessed in late April 2026 is the dawn of a new phase where Ukraine dictates the tempo. The occupied territories are no longer safe havens. Targets once considered off-limits are now burning. A newly created deep strike center within Ukraine's unmanned systems forces coordinates these operations with frightening efficiency, integrating assets for maximum impact while keeping critical details secret. The hatred between the sides has created a cycle of escalating destruction, but Ukraine's technological edge and unbreakable will are proving decisive. Putin's war of choice is devouring Russia from within. Final question for you, the reader. With Russia's rear in flames and its people growing restless, do you believe 2026 will see the collapse of Putin's ambitions in Ukraine? Or will desperation lead to even more dangerous escalations? Be honest in the comments. Your voice helps shape the global conversation around this historic conflict. If you want more hard-hitting analysis like this, stay tuned and engaged. The story is far from over, but the momentum is clearly with Ukraine.